I got out of the shower as I was cleaning off the mirror, and I saw fingers pushing through my window.
He looked very demonic, and he said in like a really scruffy voice, he said, "Hey."
I headed up that way, and my dog barked, and I looked over, and he was probably 20 feet away from me, walking straight towards me.
He used her phone after he had killed her to add me on Facebook.
I'm Jamie Beebe.
And I'm Jake Deptula. We're the hosts of Strictly Stalking, bringing you heroic stories of those who have survived at the hands of a stalker.
To hear these stories and more, listen to Strictly Stalking wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 361 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How about you?
Doing really well.
Good.
We're talking about it on TCAB, but my youngest daughter is home, finished her first year of college.
She did.
So it's awesome to have her home, and we've been missing her like crazy. So I'm looking forward to having her home for the whole summer.
She's even smarter.
And I'm sure she is smarter.
You know?
Well, she was smarter than you when she left.
That's true.
Now she's smarter than both of us, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And she knows a few things, or, you know, seems like it.
I don't know what that means, but we'll just keep going. Let's go ahead and do our Patreon shout outs. We had Mervin V.
Hey, Mervin.
Chris Powers.
What's going on, Powers?
D. Castro.
Hey, D.
Whitney.
Well, what's up, Whitney?
Lindsay.
Hey, Lindsay.
Mike.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Christina Lou.
Hey, Lou.
Cindy Ramirez.
What's going on, Ramirez?
The original Christine Campbell.
Thank you, Christine.
Anna Paredes.
Paredes.
Deborah Dienstfrei jumped out at our highest level.
What up, Deborah?
And last but not least, Leah.
Well, thank you, Leah.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Emma Boud.
Boud.
So we appreciate the new support, the continued support. We have so much stuff out right now. Saturday night, we dropped a brand new Patreon-only episode on Edith Louise Schmidt. And this is a case that goes back to the 60s. Edith was a young wife and mother having an affair, and this man ended up killing her husband.
Yeah.
She at first denied having anything to do with it, but police kind of wrapped her up into it as well. We also have a brand new episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about Matthew Owens.
Oh, man.
And Matthew Owens was a police officer in the small city of Nome, Alaska, and turned out to be a really, really awful,
terrible
individual.
Probably a future serial killer.
If he hadn't have been caught.
Yeah.
I think so. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about Sabrina Aisenberg. Sabrina was just 5 months old when she disappeared from her home in Valrico, Florida. Her parents were the main suspects from the beginning of the investigation. 2 years after Sabrina disappeared, they were indicted for perjury and conspiracy, but the charges were later dropped. Sabrina has never been found, but her family still believes she's alive.
You know, this was a case that captivated me back in the day.
Yeah, you said it was kind of one of those cases that really sparked, your interest into true crime. We all have those cases that kind of stand out to us that we remember.
I just remember, how could this happen? And I remember looking at the parents on the news and had my own thoughts. And then, the case just kind of dwindled away. And I always wondered what happened.
Well, we will explore that in this episode. Sabrina Paige Aisenberg was born on June 27th, 1997. Sabrina was the third child of Steve and Marlene Aisenberg. She had two older siblings named William and Monica, who were 4 and 8 years old. In 1993, the family moved to Florida. They lived in Valrico, a suburb of Tampa. Steve Aisenberg worked in real estate, and Marlene ran a daycare center from her home. According to CNN, the Aisenbergs sometimes left their windows and doors unlocked because they lived in a safe community. The family had an alarm system, but their neighbors told the Tampa Tribune they never used it. Before Sabrina went missing, there were several reports of attempted break-ins in the area. And I get it. You know, a lot of people think they live in a safe community.
Sure.
And they could be correct until something happens that kind of shatters that notion.
Right.
And, you know, we go back to the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. There were towns all across America that thought, this town's great. It's safe. There's no need to lock the doors and windows, until that one thing occurred in the town and it kind of changed everybody's perspective.
Before you know it, they're locking up or getting alarms and
buying guns and all of that.
I know some people I know make fun of me because I lock up my house. You know, I live in a pretty small farm village. I lock it up. And they're like, why are you locking up? You can just leave it unlocked. I'm like, do you not know I do a true crime podcast? You know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I consider my area to be pretty safe.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I keep everything locked up. I've got the alarm. That just makes me feel better. My thought has always been, why take a chance? There's no reason to.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said it before, it's extreme here, you know, with the fingerprint machine to get access, the retina eye scan.
To get through the door. Yeah, we take no chances here at the Ferguson household. Sabrina Aisenberg went missing between midnight and 6 a.m. on Monday, November 24th, 1997. Steve and Marlene tucked the kids in. On the night of November 23rd, Marlene checked on Sabrina around midnight, and she was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Steve and Marlene would later say they slept on the opposite side of the home from the kids, which made it hard to hear small noises from their bedroom.
You know, back when my kids were that age, I always kept a baby monitor.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. The bedroom that my wife and I have is across the hall from the kids' room.
Right.
But we always had a baby monitor going when they were really young. Marlene got up sometime after 6 a.m. She said she was woken up by noises from the fish tank or a TV alarm. She checked on Sabrina and saw that her crib was empty. The other children were still in the house and were unharmed. Marlene called 911 at 6:42 a.m. and said, "My baby has been kidnapped." In 2009, Steve told CNN, "I heard my wife screams. We searched in the house, and that's when my wife noticed the garage door had been left open, and even worse, the door leading from the garage to the laundry room and into our house was wide open."
So easy access, right? Through the garage, through the entry door in the garage into the house. Those are things that normally when I go to bed at night, I make my rounds.
Yeah. I check all those.
Yeah.
I even have an app on my iPhone that tells me whether or not the garage door is shut or closed.
Yeah.
I don't even have to open the door. I can just open up the app and it'll say it's closed.
But even back then, I mean, you would have made most people would make a round to make sure things are secure before you go to bed at night. At least that's how I was.
Yeah. No, I get it. You know, if you want to talk about people leaving their windows open because they want to get a breeze or whatever it is, you can understand that. Leaving the garage door open, leaving the door from the garage into the house unlocked, that's about as bad as it gets, because the garage door being open is almost like a flashing neon sign.
Sure.
And I'm not putting the blame on them. I'm just stating a fact. When somebody sees an open garage door in the middle of the night and they're intent on doing something, it could be stealing something out of your garage. Well, now let's say they notice that the door's open leading into the house from the garage. You're just opening yourself up to a lot of possibilities, and it could be a complete accident.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not saying this was done on purpose. I'm just saying, obviously, that's a very bad situation.
I mean, I've seen neighbors' garage doors open really late at night, and I'm thinking, I want to kind of go over there and just shut it for them. But then I'm like, I don't want to get like caught.
You might get
trying
shot.
to do the good deed.
Yeah.
But then they think I'm doing the bad deed.
Yeah, I remember this was years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I accidentally forgot to shut the garage door, and I didn't check it, which is strange, not like me.
Yeah.
And about 3:00 in the morning, the local police showed up. An officer who was driving by rang the doorbell, and it freaked me out. Who's ringing the doorbell at 3:00 in the morning? And I go down in my boxers, hair's all a mess, what hair I have, open the door, and he says, "Hey, your garage door's open." And I thought that was really nice.
Yeah. Surprised you woke up for that.
Well, I didn't. My wife woke up, and then she woke me up and said, "Hey, somebody's at the door."
Yeah, go get that.
There were no signs of forced entry in the house.
Well, why would there be?
Yeah, and if somebody came in through the garage, there absolutely wouldn't be. Steve and Marlene asked their neighbors if they'd seen the baby, but no one had.
Sounds a little strange. Hey, have you seen the baby? Like, it's 5 months old. It's not like
Baby's day out?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, I get it, but you're probably so frantic as a parent. You're just asking people things, maybe even if it doesn't make sense, you're just trying to figure something out. There was a man named Pete McDonald who lived in the same subdivision as the Aisenbergs. He was woken up in the middle of the night because his dog wanted out. He let the dog out the back door and heard a baby crying, which he thought was strange. Now, he didn't think a whole lot about it until he received news that Sabrina was missing. No one followed up with Pete after he called the police, according to his wife, Mary McDonald.
Which is disappointing.
It's disappointing. It's also very strange because I don't know how many tips you're having come in.
Yeah.
In a case like this. So to get this phone call and to not follow up on it, that does seem odd.
And I don't know if I would have heard a baby crying in the middle of the night, if I just wouldn't at least kind of check it out a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. I'm assuming he probably thought maybe a window was open. He was hearing the baby crying from inside a house, in his neighborhood. I don't know. The Tampa Tribune reported that Martha and Charles Jones were woken up by their dogs between 3 and 4 a.m. Charles looked outside but didn't see anything unusual. Neighbors also said the Aisenberg's dog was inside the house at night but was found outside in the morning. Now, sources did not report further about this detail. It is possible the dog got out during all the chaos that occurred that morning.
I think the dog could have got out any time through the night if the garage door was wide open and the door to the house was wide open.
Yeah. But here, I think what you do have is dog activity happening, 3, 4 in the morning. What do you make of that? It could be that someone was walking around through these backyards, something that probably didn't happen a lot at 3 or 4 in the morning. It seemed like the police were suspicious of Marlene and Steve from the beginning. They wanted to know how or why no one heard anything during the night. In 2001, Marlene told people, "The police told me that very first day that they thought I had done it. A policeman looked me right in the eye and said, 'We think you know what happened.'" Now, I'm just going to tell you right now, if your 5-month-old is missing and you had nothing to do with it, and a police officer comes out and accuses you of something, that's going to be really tough to stomach.
It is. Yeah.
Because you're already grieving. You're probably not sleeping. You're upset for sure. I mean, that would infuriate me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know why sometimes the police say that.
Well, I know why they look at it.
Yes.
Now, she's saying the very first day, this is what they said.
Kind of harsh.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Unless you have some really good evidence to support why you're saying it.
Well, and again, we're going to have to try to figure out maybe what that was or what led them in that direction. The other thing I want to go back to is, okay, police asking, why didn't you hear anything during the night? I can tell you right now, I don't hear anything at night.
Yeah.
I sleep so soundly. So, my wife and I will be talking the next morning. She'll say, did you hear all that thunder? Did you hear this? Did you hear? I said, I didn't hear none of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't. You're a heavy sleeper. You made that well known, and maybe they were, or, maybe because the baby was on the other side of the house, where the other rooms were versus where the owner suite bedroom was. It makes it kind of tough to hear things.
Officers searched the Aisenbergs' 2 vehicles and questioned them that morning. The couple first spoke to the media at 9:30 a.m. According to the Washington Post, Marlene said, this morning, someone came into our home and took our baby out of her crib and took her out of her home. And I'm begging that person to please bring our baby back to us. And that's exactly what you would expect the parents to say.
Yeah.
You would expect them to plead with whoever took this baby to bring them back unharmed.
I mean, there's been other cases where people have actually went into a family's home and stolen a baby.
Yeah, we've done some of them.
Some of them are where it's actually somebody else, and sometimes it's where the family member, is involved. I mean, and then you got, some really famous cases, the Lindbergh case.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it happens all different types of ways. And I understand police wanting to look at the parents. You kind of look inside out. That's normally the way they do it. But to come out on the first day, I'm still trying to figure out what they knew or what they had that made them believe they were involved. Steve and Marlene went to the sheriff's office on November 25th for a second interview. They both took polygraphs. Steve passed his polygraph, but Marlene's results were inconclusive. ABC reported that she did not pass a second polygraph.
So you imagine what that looked like to the public when that was released.
Yeah, I'm sure it swung, public opinion against them, at the very least, Marlene.
And I'm sure that the investigators that were thinking that they had some type of involvement probably even pushed that up higher.
Well, they definitely started questioning her more aggressively, so she and Steve decided to hire a lawyer. And their decision to hire a lawyer didn't help their public image. But Marlene said they felt they had no choice because they were being accused of being involved in the disappearance. And this is kind of something that you see in many cases. Once it's thrown out there that someone is involved, okay, people start to look at them differently.
Yeah.
Now, you fail a polygraph, okay, people are going to take that into account. And then when you hire an attorney, a lot of people view that negatively.
Yeah. Well, you must be guilty if you have an attorney.
Yeah, because there is that perception on the part of some that why would you need an attorney unless you were guilty? Now, I think we know that's not the case.
No.
But that's still a perception that some people have.
I think over the years, people understand even more so why you would probably want to get an attorney as soon as possible.
Well, and you can make the case that they would have not hired an attorney had the questioning turned so aggressive.
Yes.
They hired defense attorney Barry Cohen on November 26, 1997. Cohen advised them to stop cooperating with the police unless he was there, and the conversation could be recorded. You can talk about all of this and what it means as far as public perception, but you can't lose sight of the fact of what it means to the investigation.
Right.
Because does it become less of an investigation into, where is Sabrina? What happened to Sabrina? And more into an investigation into the parents.
Well, that's what you have to be concerned about, like you said. For the parents, now they're going to be worried that, hey, you're so focused on us, you're not trying to find our daughter.
Well, and does it make it harder for police because now the parents are not cooperating as much as they were?
Or would like to, but they can't because they're worried about how it's going to be twisted.
It's a tough situation because if they are involved, you don't want to let up on them.
Right.
But if they're not involved, then you've alienated them and now they're adversarial. And that doesn't help anybody. Meanwhile, investigators took several items from the home, including Sabrina's crib and bedding. These items were sent to the FBI lab for analysis. Fox 13 reported that 7 unidentified fingerprints were found in the home, as well as an unidentified blonde hair and a shoe print near Sabrina's crib.
I don't know if that really means a lot to say that there were 7 unidentified fingerprints in a home like that. I just don't know if that really means a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what it means. Obviously, it depends on how many different people you have in your home over the years. I'm assuming if my house was fingerprinted, there would be unidentified fingerprints.
Oh, for sure.
Not belonging to you or the family, because that's the 5 people who are here the most.
Exactly.
But other people have been allowed access.
Strangely, you've let other people come in here.
Cautiously.
Cautiously is more like it.
On December 10th, 60 divers and 50 officers searched land and bodies of water. Within a 5-mile radius of the home, they found nothing. On December 11th, authorities searched a 10-mile stretch of the Lafayette River after they received a tip from America's Most Wanted, which had recently covered the case. During the course of the investigation, law enforcement would follow up on tips in 49 states and several countries. That's a lot of tips coming in if they're taking you to 49 different states.
That's a whole lot of...
Well, and we've discussed it before, but if you can get a case profiled on America's Most Wanted, back in that time period, there was a lot of people that watched that show.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of cases that were profiled got a lot of tips. In January 1998, after taking a privately administered lie detector test, the Aisenbergs went on a media blitz, appearing on the Today Show, Dateline, Larry King, the Oprah Winfrey Show, and other national and local news outlets.
Well, that's what you'd want to do, right? You'd want to get your story out to the media to help find your daughter.
But is that the only story they're trying to get out? Because my thought is, yes, they're talking about their daughter. They want to find their daughter, but are they also talking about, and I don't have all the details from all these different interviews, I can't imagine they're also not bemoaning the fact that they're being hounded or viewed as suspects and all of that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that their attorney said, hey, we got to try to help clear up your reputation while we're out there.
On January 30th, 1998, the Aisenbergs were served subpoenas to appear before the grand jury. They made their appearance on February 10th. In March 1998, Marlene was back on Dateline, expressing her disbelief that she was accused of harming her daughter. So it's almost like they're on both offense and defense at the same time.
Yeah.
Offense from the standpoint that, you know, they're trying to get the word out. They want to find their daughter, but at the same time, they're having to defend themselves.
And that would be rough, right? If you didn't have anything to do with it, that you're constantly having to defend yourself when you're going on to these shows just to seek awareness and help to find your daughter.
Well, not just about the shows, but in everyday life. It would have to take away from your ability to give everything to, you know, the search.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like you said, just everyday life. You're going into the grocery store, the bank, wherever. I'm sure you got people looking at you like,
yeah, there's that mom who did something to her daughter.
Yeah.
In the summer of 1999, the family moved to Bethesda, Maryland, which is Steve's hometown. They were hoping to avoid publicity, but, you know, by this point, that was pretty much impossible.
I think it'd be hard to move, but I understand if you have all that type of publicity on you that maybe, and for your other kids, you'd want to. But for me, I don't know until I knew where my daughter was.
Yeah, I absolutely get you. And we've heard from people, right? They wouldn't change their phone number ever. They wouldn't get rid of a phone. They wouldn't move just because they were sitting by the phone waiting for, their loved one to walk through the door or call or whatever it is. But I don't know if some of those people were being looked at as possibly having had something to do with, their loved one's disappearance. So maybe that was a little easier for them.
Yeah, I'm sure, if you're going outside to get your mail and your neighbors are all staring at you like, we know what you did.
Yeah. Marlene and Steve recalled that their new neighbors wouldn't allow their children to play with the Aisenberg kids. Steve was not allowed to coach children's sports, which he had always done in Florida. He said he was only allowed to watch games if he didn't speak to anyone. Marlene lost her career working with children.
None of that makes any sense to me. If you didn't do anything wrong and you weren't charged with anything, how could that be imposed on you? Or are they just saying that these different organizations said, oh, you're that guy? Yeah, we don't want you coaching our kids, and you can come to the games, but we don't want you speaking to any of the kids. I don't think there was anything that could restrict them.
It does seem a little rough if you've not been even charged, right, with a crime. But months later, there was a major development in the case. On September 9th, 1999, Steve and Marlene Aisenberg were indicted on 7 counts of conspiracy and perjury. Steve was arrested at work and Marlene was arrested at home. People reported that Marlene tried to call her lawyer instead of opening the door immediately, so FBI agents used a battering ram to knock down her front door.
Pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I guess they did not want to wait for her to open the door. Now, it could have also been a safety thing.
Sure.
Like they had no idea what she was doing, behind closed doors. The Tampa Tribune reported that Marlene refused to open the door after 5 minutes of knocking and hung up when she was called. So I think that adds a little bit more context.
Sure does.
To it. The indictment accused the couple of lying, misleading investigators and the public, and capitalizing financially on the publicity from Sabrina's disappearance.
Fundraisers, things like that.
They were not indicted on murder charges, but the indictment suggested they knew what happened to Sabrina, that they may be responsible for her death, and that they had a family pact to conceal it, per the Washington Post. So those are very, very serious accusations.
Sure it is.
Short of you murdered your daughter. The indictment accused the couple of using donations to pay off their credit card debt. It also stated that Marlene told a deputy sheriff who came to the house after she called 911 that she was woken up by a loud fish tank on the morning of November 24th, 1997. 2 hours later, she told other investigators that she heard the wake-up alarm on her TV.
So conflicting stories.
Yes. And again, I don't know what you make of that. Could you have heard both things? Possibly. Could you have been so discombobulated that you said the wrong thing? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, it's a very stressful moment in your life. If you had nothing to do with it, that you're going to be stressed, and we really remember what woke you up.
But I want to get your take on this allegation that the couple used donations to pay off their credit card debt.
Yeah, if that's true, that's wrong, right?
Well, is it?
Well,
that's what I want to talk about, because what are the donations for?
Yeah, I mean, technically, legally, are you obligated to use that money specifically for something? Or what if you used your credit card to pay for flyers?
Right.
What if you use your credit card to put ads in the paper? Now you got the money, you're going to pay off your credit card.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's what they did. I just kind of wanted to bring that up. When you hear it, your first reaction is, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because you're assuming that they're paying off Amazon purchases or vacations or
Dinner,
whatever it is.
Whatever.
But what if the credit card charges were related to the search for Sabrina? Would it then change your opinion?
So. Yeah.
Or would it then change it legally?
Or what if they used the cash they had on hand that they were going to pay their credit card bill with, but said, I'm going to take this cash and go down and get 1,000 flyers printed, and now it's time to pay their credit card bill. Well, shoot, I used that cash, so I'll just use this donation. Yeah, I mean, you just don't
I think
know.
that would be a little more gray.
I know, but you just, unless you dive into their credit card expenses and see what they paid, it's hard. But if that runs, when that ran in the paper,
it looks bad.
It looks really bad.
Yeah. Just like it did to you right off the top of your head.
Absolutely.
The indictment alleged that 2 months later, Steve and Marlene realized they couldn't remember what they originally said, so they decided to tell the federal grand jury. The TV alarm went off at 6:22 or 6:24 a.m. The couple was shown enlarged photos of Sabrina, which were taken from a home video recorded on November 22nd, 1997. Prosecutors argued that a pediatrician reviewed the photos and said it looked like hair was pulled out of Sabrina's head, and the area around her left eye was bruised. Detectives also claimed that a hairdresser who cut the kid's hair said she noticed hair missing from Sabrina's head.
It's always difficult to have to answer those type of allegations, right? I mean, you have one expert saying it looks like maybe her hair was pulled out. You have a hairstylist saying that it looks like she definitely had less hair. Or maybe the baby was grabbing her own hair, pulling on it.
Yeah, we have no idea what the answers are for that. Now, the left eye being bruised, okay.
Doesn't sound good.
It's concerning, but is there an explanation for it? I don't know. When Steve and Marlene saw these photos, Marlene ran out of the room and Steve became red-faced per the Washington Post. The couple said the bald spot on Sabrina's head was caused by crusty stuff behind her ears. The most serious allegations in the indictment focused on the couple's secretly recorded conversations. 16 days after Sabrina went missing, the police got permission to wiretap Steve and Marlene's home and phone line. They were monitored for 79 days, and 2,600 conversations were recorded.
That's a lot.
That's a big number. It's also scary to think what you talk about in the sanctity of your own home is being listened to by someone else.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I talk about anything bad, but there are things that I don't want everyone to hear.
Well, look, I'm just going to say that I'm pretty sure if the feds were wiretapping your phone, they'd be very bored with the, yes, honey, yep, okay, I'll see you when you get home, bye.
You're on your way home? Okay.
That's about the extent of your conversations.
Yes, I do not make many calls or receive many calls. Recording devices were placed in the home on December 13th, 1997. In January and February of 1998, detectives received approval to extend their monitoring because of these photos of Sabrina that allegedly showed injuries. As reported by the Washington Post on December 23rd, 1997, Marlene allegedly told Steve, "The baby's dead and buried. It was found dead because you did it. The baby's dead no matter what you say. You just did it." Okay, if that was actually said, that's not looking good.
No, if that's how it was said, not good for them.
Steve allegedly said in that same conversation, "Honey, there was nothing I could do about it. We need to discuss the way we can beat the charge. I would never break from the family pact and our story, even if the police were to hold me down. We will do what we have to do." Now, we have been, talking about Steve and Marlene, what they were up against, saying, okay, if they didn't do it, some of these things would be horrible. And how you could view certain things that came out or happened, it's pretty tough to put any type of spin on these conversations as reported by the Washington Post. Like you said, if they happened the way that they were reported, that looks horrible.
Oh, yeah.
For this couple.
And that's the thing. When this was reported out to the public, right or wrong.
Because they did use the word allegedly.
Yeah.
So, obviously the paper is couching, or they're safeguarding a little bit.
But the perception of the public is going to be, I knew it. I knew it
all along.
Yeah.
They had something to do with it. According to the Tampa Tribune, on December 24th, Steve and Marlene discussed their neighbors being potential witnesses against them. Steve allegedly said, "They can't hang me," the other 4 neighbors. "They can't hang me unless you attack me before the evidence." Marlene allegedly responded, "Oh, Steve, I tried to save her. She died, and we can't confuse them. But we'll try it, hun, They were shown the photos of Sabrina on January 21st, 1998. Later that day, Steve allegedly said, "I wish I hadn't harmed her." Okay, very damning. Detectives thought they heard Marlene respond, "I just can't take the rap for this."
I mean, none of this sounds good.
No, and we've really gone from a place of, well, we don't know why the police are, so focused in on them in the beginning, to now, how could they not be focused on them based on some of these things that they reportedly said?
Yeah.
I mean, some of this stuff is nothing short of a confession.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how else could you take it if it's correct?
On January 31st, detectives thought they heard Marlene's father confront her about what she had done with Sabrina. Marlene apparently said, per the Tampa Tribune, "I subconsciously did not do anything. Do you understand? Right now, I can't see them having any evidence strong enough to indict me." Okay, can we analyze that for a minute? I subconsciously did not do anything. I don't even understand what that means.
Wouldn't it be...
subconscious is like when you don't know you're doing it, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be, I consciously didn't know what I was doing?
So I thought that was a strange statement. On February 17th, 1998, Steve allegedly asked Marlene, "They don't know the truth, right?" Marlene seemingly replied, "Yeah. So in a way, that means nobody knows exactly what we did still."
If this is being said and you're hearing it, one, you're going to be frustrated as an investigator. You're like, oh, this is terrible. But you're also probably a little bit excited thinking, we've got these people. We've got them.
In the back of my mind, I'm imagining some of these recordings being played for a jury. How else is a jury going to take what they're saying if this is actually on a recording?
Yeah, if you can play this in front of a jury and they can understand what's being said, you're done.
Seems like it. At a bond hearing on September 9th, 1999, an assistant U.S. attorney told a federal magistrate that they recorded Steve talking about how he was high on cocaine the night Sabrina disappeared. Their conversation suggested they were drugged when speaking. Prosecutors claim they had 54 examples that suggested a conspiracy to throw off the investigation. In February 2000, the Aisenberg's lawyers attacked the government's case and alleged that the recordings were not audible and that detectives manipulated the truth. In May 2000, a defense audio expert said he could not hear the statements that prosecutors alleged were said by the couple. In the fall of 2000, the judge in the case asked the U.S. magistrate judge to listen to the recordings. On February 14th, 2001, U.S. Magistrate Judge Mark Pizzo issued an opinion that the tape should be thrown out as evidence.
Wow, that's big.
It's huge. We just got done talking about how, as the prosecution, if you have these tapes, you're able to play these tapes, and the jury can understand them, I think you have an easy win.
Yeah.
Now, you may not know exactly what happened, but something happened and that this couple was responsible. Now, you've got audio experts saying, I'm not hearing on these tapes what the authorities are alleging the couple said. And then you have a U.S. magistrate judge who says these things should be thrown out.
Yeah.
And the only conclusion you can draw from that is that they're not audible.
Which is now a huge problem for the prosecution, but also for the detectives, right? How did you come up with what you think they said?
Well, the judge accused lead detectives Linda Sue Burton and William Blake of manufacturing facts. He accused the detectives of deliberately misleading a state judge to get permission to bug the house. He determined that the detectives' conclusions about the audio made no sense, and their deductions were, quote, pure fiction. Judge Pizzo wrote, as quoted by the Tampa Tribune, they omitted information and distorted conversations. They included statements in their applications for extensions, which the defendants did not say or cannot be heard.
Wow.
It's almost as if they were hearing what they wanted to hear, or they were deliberately saying that what was being said was something completely different than what everybody else was hearing. The opinion continued, the detectives report conversations no reasonably prudent listener can hear, quote, conversations that do not appear in the supporting transcript, and deliberately or with reckless disregard summarize conversations out of context. And, let's be honest, context is huge. Now, if it's on a recording, then you just let the recording speak for itself.
Right.
But if you're taking snippets out of context, well, then you can paint a picture that is not accurate. If you and I are sitting here talking and you say 3 or 4 sentences and I take 2 words out of one sentence, 3 words out of another sentence, and I say, well, Gibby said this. Well, no, that's not what Gibby said.
Right.
I'm taking something out of context. Or if I try to summarize what you said and I put my own spin on it, that's not fair.
You could change the whole meaning of what was said.
And I can make you look however I want to make you look.
Which you do all the time.
I do not. On February 21st, 2001, the government dismissed the case against Steve and Marlene Aisenberg. Prosecutors didn't give an explanation for their decision. I don't know that they had to give an explanation. I mean, without what they thought was this bombshell evidence.
Well, they probably didn't have anything.
Yeah. The lead prosecutor was demoted in July 2001, according to Fox 13.
I'm sure they were.
Well, and this is the stuff that rubs people the wrong way. And when you talk about law enforcement, you talk about prosecutors, gather the facts. If you have the facts and the evidence, present the case, make the charges, do all that. But we can't be inventing stuff. That's where people get very upset.
Just keep it to the facts, Jack.
Or saying that a piece of evidence means something that it really doesn't.
Right.
The Eisenbergs later filed a lawsuit against the federal government and won almost $3 million to cover their legal fees. The settlement was based on the Hyde Amendment, which, according to Fox 13, gives the court permission to award fees and other expenses if the court finds that the position of the United States was vexatious, frivolous, or in bad faith. And I do not know what vexatious means. I will have to look that up.
Vexatious? I mean, I think that's like...
well, you said it wrong, so...
Yeah, but I think it's like harassment, like a...
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. Or whatever word you said.
Yeah. Vexatious.
Their judgment was later reduced to $1.5 million. The Eisenbergs sued for additional damages, accusing prosecutors of conspiring to deprive them of their civil rights. The suit against federal prosecutors was dropped in 2004 after a judge ruled that the law gave prosecutors immunity. And a lot of people have an issue with that.
They do.
I mean, I understand why that exists, but I think there are some times where the prosecutors go so far out of bounds that immunity thing really shouldn't apply, but unfortunately it does.
And I think there's been some in the past not too long ago, some movement to try to get that changed a little bit.
I think there has been. I mean, you don't want every prosecutor to be sued over every little thing, but if it's egregious, if it's, so over the top, out of bounds, unethical, then okay. The Aisenbergs dropped a lawsuit against the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in 2006. The investigation into Sabrina's disappearance was still ongoing. In May 2003, the family learned about a girl in Illinois who matched Sabrina's description. She was called Paloma Unknown. According to the Charlie Project, Paloma Unknown was taken into Mexico by a teen girl who claimed to be her mother. She gave the girl to a woman who may have been working in the textile industry and was about to be deported. This woman allegedly gave the child to a friend who was an RN at a migrant clinic, and she signed the paperwork allowing the child to be put up for adoption. The nurse gave the girl to her sister, who raised the baby in Illinois. When the sister and her partner tried to adopt Paloma Unknown, they were denied because they didn't have her birth certificate or information on her background. They were appointed her legal guardians instead. Several agencies tried to identify her parents, but they were unsuccessful. A DNA test revealed that Paloma Unknown was not Sabrina Aisenberg.
But it looks like they did a thorough investigation.
They did. That's what it sounds like. In 2008, the Aisenbergs were once again under suspicion when the Hillsborough police received a tip from a credible jail informant. According to the St. Petersburg Times, the informant said the Aisenbergs sold their boat to him to dispose of a baby's body at sea. They denied this claim and said they never had a boat.
I wonder what a credible jail informant is. Can you really be credible if you're
a jail informant? Yeah. Well, I think the police come out and say that they're credible if they think it'll help them.
Yeah.
But I do think, it would be pretty easy to figure out whether or not they had a boat.
I would think so.
At one point in time, and then no longer had the boat.
Yeah, what happened to your boat that was here 2 days ago?
I mean, there's neighbors, it's not like you're talking about a diamond ring.
Right.
A boat's something that a lot of people can pretty easily see. In 2008, an inmate named Dennis Byron claimed that HCSO detectives asked him to wear a wire and record his conversations with his friend and fellow inmate, Scott Overbeck, who was in jail for being a felon in possession of an explosive device. Byron was arrested in December 2006 after he intentionally tried to hit a deputy's vehicle. In December 2007, he agreed to try to get information from Scott Overbeck. Before the operation started, he passed a polygraph test where he gave a statement about what he knew. According to Fox 13, Scott Overbeck once lived down the street from a guy named Tony Tranquillo. Tranquillo was an investigator with the law firm that assisted the Aisenbergs. He died in 2006. Sworn statements cited in the Tampa Bay Times state that, according to Byron, Overbeck said he was asked to go to the Aisenberg home to pick up a boat with the baby's body inside. He disposed of the body in the water near the Courtney Campbell Causeway. Byron said it was his impression that Overbeck was asked to do it by Tony Tranquillo. Byron's attorney, John Trevina, said his client sent a letter stating that Tony Tranquillo, the Aisenbergs, and their lawyer, Barry Cohen, were targets of the sheriff's office investigation. Trevina said all Mr. Byron did in this case was relay what Mr. Overbeck had told him. He had no independent knowledge of any of this information and never claimed to. The only thing he could claim directly was that he saw this boat Overbeck claimed was used in the disposal of the baby. Trevina said in a press conference that the sheriff's office bought the boat from Overbeck for $2,500 in late 2007. Byron was removed from prison and put in a drug program, but he left without permission. He claimed he fled because Overbeck was in a motorcycle gang and he was scared that word got out that he was an informant. Byron was arrested and sentenced to almost 70 months in prison for violating the terms of his release. His prison sentence was later reduced to just 36 months because he cooperated with authorities.
Interesting stuff.
It is interesting, but I don't know what you make of it. I mean, the police buy this boat from this guy for $2,500. It must not have been much of a boat.
Right.
But I go back to, if he claimed that he got this boat from the Aisenbergs, it seemed like that would have been something that could have been or should have been corroborated.
Yeah. And it just seems weird that somebody would be like, hey, there's a boat over here. I need you to come and get it. And there's a baby on board. And if you could just toss it in the water, we need you to do that.
But not just somebody. The Aisenbergs' attorney's investigator.
Yeah. Which
they didn't hire an attorney right away. I mean, it was fairly early, but
this boat was somewhere else, and that's where the baby was. Like, hey, I'm going to tell you, I know where the baby is. It's on this boat over in this marina. Don't worry about it. I'll send my investigator out. He'll throw the baby in the water. It will never happen. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that.
Well, it goes back to your question of what is a credible jailhouse informant.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I think more often than not, they're just trying to get something. Have jailhouse informant tips led to, real evidence? Yes, absolutely. Do the majority of them do? I don't know that that's the case. Fox 13 reported that the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office sent a statement denying that they ever interviewed attorney Barry Cohen as a suspect, and they had no political agenda. Barry Cohen passed away in 2018. In March 2018, 2020 covered Sabrina's case, revealing that 2 women came forward who believed they could be the missing girl. They underwent DNA testing, and the results were pending when the episode aired. Marlene said she received a message from one woman in November 2017. She claimed she had no baby pictures before the age of 1. She was 20 at that time and has a similar birthday to Sabrina. She also learned that her social security number matched a woman in California. The problem is I couldn't find anything kind of on this DNA testing, like no updates. I think it's safe to say that it didn't come back that either one of these women were Sabrina, or it would have been
newsworthy.
Yeah, all over the news. The Aisenberg family still lives in Maryland. In January 2023, Marlene and Steve told Fox 13 that they believe Sabrina will be found. They hope one day she will take a DNA test and learn the truth about her identity. The Aisenbergs have uploaded their DNA to several genetic sites like Ancestry and 23andMe. They also work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which uses GEDmatch and FamilyTree.com. Marlene said, that's how we're going to get her home. Anybody that thinks they see somebody that looks like they could be our family, look like Sabrina, look like William and Monica, please have your friends take a DNA test. That's how it's going to happen. And if she's out there somewhere alive and has no idea who she really is, that is how it's going to happen.
Yeah. One day she's going to take a DNA test, and then she's going to get this message that, hey, we have a match. And she's going, oh, this is my mom. This is my dad.
Marlene and Steve believe someone took Sabrina because they wanted a baby of their own. And they pray that she was loved and cared for by whoever took her. Sabrina Aisenberg would be 26 years old today. You can view an aged, progressed photo of her on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website. If you have any information about the disappearance of Sabrina Aisenberg, you can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. You can also contact the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 813-247-8200. So as we wrap up this case, Gibbs, it's kind of been a roller coaster, I'll be honest with you. I worry that there was so much attention paid to the family that it could have possibly harmed the investigation into Sabrina's disappearance. I don't know if it did, but there was obviously a lot of attention paid to the family. I can't get over these recorded conversations. I want to know what was really on there as opposed to what authorities said was on there, because obviously a judge listened to him and he said, it's not on there.
Yeah. And an audio expert
said the same thing.
I mean, he was.
Because you and I even said it. If any of that stuff had been on there, that would be such great evidence that these two had a hand in whatever happened to Sabrina.
Yeah.
And obviously it just wasn't there. So, as always, we don't know what happened. I will say, I feel horrible for them if they had nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like they've really been put through the ringer on top of already, losing their child, not knowing what happened to Sabrina. Now, if they did have something to do with it, then you hope that would come out one day. But you would think with how much time has passed and how hard the police have looked at them, if they could have made a case, it would have happened.
Yeah. But, public perception can be brutal, man.
Oh, absolutely. And like you say all the time, just because, the judge comes out and says, hey, I'm not hearing on this tape what you say is on there. Well, the papers printed it.
Yeah.
Now they did say allegedly, but people don't always know that a judge came back and said. So if they just read that, they would think, well, of course these people are guilty.
And I think sometimes people don't read that word allegedly and they just focus in on what was said. And that's, they tell their neighbor, oh, I seen one in the paper. They said, blah, 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 and before you know it, people are talking.
So I think there are a number of scenarios that you can walk through. Obviously, the parents doing something to Sabrina, that is one avenue. You have somebody coming in through the garage and the unlocked door from the garage, finding a baby, maybe giving that off or selling that baby off to somebody who wants a baby.
Yeah.
Maybe involved in some type of trafficking operation. I think that's one avenue that you have to consider. And then maybe somebody coming in wanting to do something horrible and harmful to a baby. That's probably a third avenue you have to look at.
Yeah.
I think in a couple of those scenarios, though, there is a possibility that Sabrina Aisenberg is still alive. She just doesn't know who she is.
Well, that's true.
I mean, you think of the memories that you would have at the age of 5 months.
Not going to remember anything.
No. But maybe we'll get the answers. I hope the family gets the answers.
Hope so too.
Again, if they didn't have anything to do with it, they deserve the answers.
Absolutely.
But that's it for our episode on the disappearance of Sabrina Aisenberg. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yes, hear them.
Hello, Mike and Gibby. This is Laura calling. I was just listening to your Unsolved for this week, and Gibby, you said something about dancing around your house like that guy in the movie he just watched. And Mike said, you talking about Silence of the Lambs? Which you were not, but now I have this mental picture of you, Gibby, dancing around with somebody else's hair in a dress, dancing around your house. And now I have to go see a therapist because I can't get that mental picture out of my head. So thank you guys for giving that to me. Love you both. Keep your own time ticking. Bye.
She didn't say anything about you being tucked, but I'm assuming that was part of the mental image.
She's thinking a little, that'd be tough to tuck, though.
So I'll say this. She has that image. There's so many things that you say not on the podcast that cause images that I have to live with forever. So it's tough. I sympathize with you.
Hey guys, this is Angela from Dallas. I've left a message one time before, but I really am enjoying one of the Patreon episodes. And I'm just going to say, Gibby, I'm not sure your stepdad will appreciate you referring to his flowing back hair. I'm pretty sure I know what you meant, but it sure sounds like you're saying his back hair is really, really, really long. Also, the guy that was saying you guys are part of the problem, I think he is obviously just speaking out of his hurt. And I think you guys do a really amazing job about being compassionate. I listen to a lot of podcasts that I do actually like that are definitely not as compassionate as you guys are. And so I think you're doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work. Don't take it personally. I think you guys are pretty good about that, but I just want you to know that I think you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I forget, that was something we were talking about on Patreon, I think, wasn't it?
About back hair?
No, I think you were talking about my stepdad's, when I said he looks like Kenny Rogers, got the hair.
Oh, yeah.
And you said the flowing back hair.
That's right.
He does not have long back hair. But so there's another image for everyone.
That you know of.
That I know of. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Pluto TV has over 300 channels and thousands of TV shows and movies for whatever mood you're in. Just open the app and something good will already be playing because it's curated by people who love TV as much as you do. So if you're in the mood for comedy, there's 18 channels that'll make you laugh. Looking for drama? We got so much of it, you'll cry tears of joy. Reality shows, game shows, sports, Star Trek, and even more Star Trek. No matter what mood you're in, there's something on Pluto TV. Just download the app and start streaming. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.